Maria watched her son with a smile as he tried on his new suit. Tall, handsome, dark-haired. Tomorrow her boy was getting married. She could hardly believe it. Tomas examined his reflection in the mirror, then nodded with satisfaction. The suit fit perfectly. Stylish suit. The young man turned to his mother. And the color is nice, looks expensive. It is expensive, Maria thought, but she said out loud, I'm glad you like it. I'll definitely shed a tear when I see you all dressed up at the wedding. At the wedding? Tomas finally tore himself away from the mirror. Mom, are you planning to come to the wedding? We agreed you wouldn't be there. Agreed? Son, I thought you were joking. Joking? Tomas started pacing the room nervously. Did you forget what Veronica's parents are like? The wedding will be full of elite guests. You'll feel like a poor relative there. I'll be worried about you. Mom, do you want to ruin my special day? Tomas sat down next to Maria on the couch, took her hand, and squeezed it gently. Mom, just imagine how out of place you'll look among all those fancy ladies. I'd be humiliated. Veronica and I will come visit you another day, okay? We'll have tea or champagne. You can congratulate us and give us your gift. Maria's heart ached with the sting of betrayal. Her own son was so ashamed of her that he preferred to appear at his wedding like an orphan. Why would I look out of place? Maria countered. I have an appointment with a good hairstylist, I'll get my nails done, and I have a decent dress. A decent dress? That old blue rag? Tomas yelled, pacing the room again. Here's the deal. He stood in front of his mother. If you don't understand nicely, I'll spell it out for you. I don't want to see you at the wedding. Call me a jerk, but I'm ashamed that my mother is a cleaning lady. I don't want you embarrassing me in front of Veronica's parents with your hobo look. Is that clear? Shocked by her son's confession, Maria couldn't utter a word. Tomas silently grabbed his backpack, the garment bag with his suit, and headed for the door. He stopped at the threshold. I'll say it one more time, don't come to the ceremony. No one will be happy to see you there. Tomas had left several hours ago. Dusk had fallen outside, and Maria still sat on the couch, completely stunned. She was so shocked she couldn't even cry. The tears came later when she turned on the light and took an old family photo album out of the drawer. Her whole unadorned life fit into that album. The memories hit Maria with such force that it was hard to breathe. An old, battered photo. A blue-eyed 2-year-old girl looked intently at the camera. Her colorful dress was obviously a hand-me-down. Next to her stood a thin, strange woman with a vacant gaze and a silly smile. Even in the poor, quality photo, it was clear the woman was tipsy. Maria was 2.5 years old when her mother lost parental rights and disappeared from her life forever. As an adult, Maria never tried to find her wayward mother. Why bother? A group photo. 10-year-old Maria with unruly golden curls stands in the second row, third from the left. Life in the orphanage was tough. The institution where Maria grew up was a carbon copy of the troubled shelters from documentaries filmed in the chaotic 90s. The cook stole food, the caregivers yelled profanities, and the director encouraged bullying. She didn't care how the older kids maintained discipline. 3 pretty girls in waitress uniforms posed flirtatiously on the steps of an establishment with a slightly crooked sign. After finishing school, Maria didn't stress much about choosing a profession. She quickly found work as a waitress at a roadside cafe aptly named By the Road. The owner didn't pay much, but the main income for a waitress was tips, and clients tipped the pretty, quick Maria generously. The 12-hour shifts were exhausting, but Maria didn't get discouraged. She liked living independently. She had a spacious, bright room in a communal apartment. Her neighbors, an elderly couple, were friendly. She had some money, though not much. Additionally, she unexpectedly discovered a talent, the ability to dress well for next to nothing. Maria bought clothes at second-hand shops and refashioned them, turning worn garments into trendy outfits. A summer meadow in the forest. A happy, laughing Maria wearing a large wreath of flowers and leaves sits on the green grass. A handsome, dark-haired young man in a matching wreath hugs her shoulders. So many years have passed, but Maria's heart still skips a beat when she looks at that photo. She had been working at the roadside cafe for about a year when she met Miguel. That summer morning, the cafe was surprisingly busy. Maria was darting around the dining area with a tray, serving impatient customers. Suddenly, she tripped over nothing and spilled a glass of tomato juice on a guy sitting at the table by the window. A bright red stain slowly spread across his light-colored shirt. Maria was so horrified she lost her voice. It was obvious the shirt was very expensive. Before she could gather her thoughts, the cafe owner, Julian, appeared at the table and started fussing over the guy while yelling at the poor waitress and threatening to fire her. Why all the fuss? The guy smirked and handed Maria his car keys. Don't worry. I'm heading to my parents' summer house. I have a clean T-shirt in my car. Could you bring my backpack from the back seat? I'll get it myself, Miguel. The helpful Julian snatched the keys from Maria. Otherwise, this chicken might break something in the car too. Left alone with the customer, the frightened girl finally managed to apologize. I'm so sorry, this has never happened to me before, I swear. I'll pay for the damage. Calm down, it's no big deal. Nothing serious, young lady. By the way, what's your name? Maria. And I'm Miguel. He extended his hand to her. Hesitantly shaking the stranger's hand, Maria dared to look at his face for the first time. An attractive guy. Tall, athletic, with slightly mischievous gray eyes and a charming smile. The owner brought the customer his backpack and offered to show him to a place where he could clean up. As he walked past Maria, Julian asked sarcastically, "Why are you standing around? Your shift is over." She was collecting money from a couple in love when she heard a cheerful voice behind her. "Maria, could you spare a minute?" She turned around. Miguel, now in a fresh blue T-shirt, was sitting at the same table. "Take my order." Of course. While serving the handsome customer, the girl felt awkward, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Julian personally escorted the guy to the door, then winked at Maria. "Don't be mad, I yelled at you on purpose. He might have made you pay for the shirt. It's more expensive than your salary." "How do you know him?" "That's Miguel, the mayor's son. Everyone in town knows him." By evening, Maria was so exhausted from the long hours of hustle that she forgot about the morning incident. All she wanted was to get home and collapse into bed. It was already dark outside, and there was no telling how long she'd have to wait for the bus. Suddenly, a light-colored car pulled up to the cafe. Maria instinctively stepped back to the porch but then recognized the car. What was the mayor's son doing here? Miguel jumped out of the car, grabbed a large bouquet from the seat, and walked straight to Maria. Getting close to the stunned girl, he thrust the flowers into her hands. "Done with work?" "Sorry, I didn't know what kind of flowers you like, so I went with plain white roses. I promise I'll only give you your favorites from now on." "From now on?" The waitress was completely confused. Why? Miguel laughed. I'm courting you. By the way, it's such a beautiful evening. Want to go somewhere? Maria had already forgotten how tired she was. Everything happening now felt like a magical dream. She suddenly realized she was ready to go anywhere with this guy. But fortunately, she remembered her shabby appearance just in time. Old jeans, a simple t-shirt, and her hair a mess. Thanks, but I'm exhausted. I can't tonight, Maria said with regret. How about tomorrow then? Miguel persisted. Tomorrow then, echoed the girl. The next day, they met again and didn't part after that. It was love at first sight. Miguel, an economics student, had just passed his summer exams, and the couple started seeing each other every day. In July, Miguel took Maria on a vacation. She didn't have a passport, so they spent a magical 10 days in a nearby city. Miguel introduced his beloved to his university friends, and they often went swimming and had barbecues in the countryside. It was the brightest, most carefree, and unforgettable summer of Maria's life. She never experienced such unrestrained happiness again. The lovers had already started talking about marriage, but in the fall, all their bright plans for the future collapsed overnight. One day, Miguel's cousin saw him on the street with a modestly dressed stranger. From that moment, Maria's life turned into a nightmare. Miguel's family was vehemently against their only son being involved with a poor girl from an orphanage. Miguel's mother, aunt, and grandmother called Maria every day. They showered her with insults and threats, demanding she leave their boy alone. Miguel's cousin even showed up at the cafe and caused a huge scene, throwing a milkshake in the waitress's face. Elderly women near Maria's apartment building reported that some people had spent an hour asking about her. Yes, a lady was here recently, confirmed her neighbor. She offered my wife and me good money to confirm that you're a drug addict, a promiscuous woman, and an alcoholic. I kicked that hyena out. Maria didn't tell her fiancé anything, knowing that his potential student exchange trip abroad was being decided. It seemed he was under pressure too, as there was a worried look in his eyes. Sometimes, he would study her face intently, but upon seeing her gentle smile, he would sigh in relief. About 2 weeks before Miguel's departure, Maria received a phone call in her apartment. "This is Nicholas," she heard a harsh male voice on the other end. "I'm Miguel's father. You must break up with my son before he leaves. Tell him you have another man. If you ignore my words, you'll regret it bitterly." And without waiting for a reply, the mayor hung up. Maria was ready to give her life for Miguel. Could she turn away from someone she loved so desperately? When her beloved flew to London, events began to unfold around her at lightning speed, events she still recalls as a bad dream. Julian, bribed by the town's mayor, suddenly accused the waitress of a significant shortage, and Maria was arrested. Maria was so stunned by her boss's treachery that she didn't secure proper legal defense when the case was quickly sent to trial. She was sure that the truth would soon come out and these terrible accusations would be dropped. The trial was a farce. The court-appointed lawyer barely stayed awake during the proceedings, while the prosecutor went all out. Every day, Maria expected Miguel to show up and save her. But a friend told her that, according to rumors, he was planning to continue his studies in England. Maria was sentenced to 3 years. In prison, she found out she was expecting a child. She forbade herself from thinking about the time spent in the women's facility. It was too painful. Overcome with despair, she hurriedly turned the page of the family album. A dark-haired, gray-eyed baby. Maria gently caressed the photo. Her son was such a sweet and intelligent little boy. Only God knows what it cost her to raise him alone. Maria served a year and a half before being released on parole. She was incredibly fortunate that her child wasn't taken away. Outside, a flood of problems descended on her. No one wanted to hire a young woman with a small child, especially one with a criminal record. Thanks to her neighbor Victor, who through his grown student helped place Thomas in daycare, Maria was finally able to work tirelessly. She worked as a cleaner in a restaurant, cleaned local offices in the evenings, took weekend shifts at a car wash, and sewed pillowcases and sheets at night. Maria didn't dwell on the past. Why add more pain? While she served her sentence, all old connections were severed. Once, she accidentally met an old friend who told her that the roadside cafe owner, Julian, had gone bankrupt. Mayor Nicholas had moved his family to another city after a promotion, and his son had married a beautiful woman from the capital a year ago. Maria cried all night, then wiped her tears and went to clean the restaurant floors. She needed to raise her son, who was now her only concern and joy. Dawn began to break outside the window. Had Maria really spent the whole night over the album? She lay down to sleep, but thoughts of her son kept her awake. She always tried so hard to please him with expensive toys, delicious food, and fashionable clothes. She was willing to break her back to fulfill all his wishes, within her means, of course. If Thomas needed a new gadget, he would calmly announce it to his mother, knowing she would find the necessary money. In the worst case, she'd take on another cleaning job somewhere. Of course, Maria was partly to blame for Thomas growing up to be such a heartless egotist. She never complained to him about being tired, never took a sick day, and always slipped him the choicest bites at lunch. No wonder the guy never stopped to think about the cost at which his mother earned money. And now her own son is ashamed of Maria and doesn't want the pitiful cleaner present at the wedding ceremony. I've had enough. Maria sighed bitterly, then turned to the portrait of Thomas hanging on the wall. Son, I've catered to your every whim for 25 years, but this time, I'm doing things my way. You'll have to forgive me. The woman got out of bed and pulled out a box from the nightstand where she kept her savings in the old-fashioned way. Plus, there's a month's salary on the card. That should cover your outfit, hairdo, and makeup. Maria's appearance at the registry office caused a real sensation. She always looked young, and after a visit to the beauty salon, she seemed to have shed a decade. Male guests stole glances at the slim, blonde woman in a gorgeous blue dress. During the ceremony, the mother, wiping away tears, admired her serious, slightly bewildered son and his charming bride. How good it was that she came here. Later, all the guests congratulated the newlyweds, and Thomas sneaked through the crowd to his mother and whispered, "So, my request meant nothing to you? I hope you won't rush off to the restaurant." "I won't go." Maria nodded. "I've seen everything I wanted to see." "Hello." Veronica, beaming with happiness, rushed up to them. "Maria, you look stunning. My parents invite you to join them at the restaurant." "Thank you, but it's time for me to go." "What do you mean it's time?" protested Veronica. "Thomas, what's going on?" "Indeed, Mom, where are you rushing off to? After all, it's your only son's wedding." With a strained smile, Thomas invited his mother to the restaurant. When it was time for the parents to congratulate the newlyweds, Maria took the microphone. "Children, be happy. Be happy and love each other for the rest of your lives." In Maria's brief speech, there was so much sincere feeling that the guests gave her a standing ovation. As she descended from the small stage, the woman nearly collided with a tall man in an expensive suit. His face seemed familiar. "It can't be. It can't be," Miguel said aloud, blocking her path. "Maria, is it really you? What are you doing here, Miguel? Maria couldn't believe her eyes. The bride's father, my business partner, invited me to the wedding. What a handsome son you have. Nervously, Miguel took Maria's hand. Shall we go talk by the window? Are you alone, without your wife? I've been divorced for 10 years now, no kids. They talked for a whole hour. Miguel told how his father, flying to visit him abroad, had told him that Maria had met another guy and left with him. Shocked, Miguel didn't believe his father. Afraid of humiliating his beloved with offensive suspicions, he decided to first find out the truth from his best friend. His friend went to the roadside cafe but didn't find the girl there. The owner and waitresses unanimously confirmed the information received from his father. I almost went crazy with grief back then. I stayed in England for another 6 months. And then I returned to our city. Dad got a promotion. Then he got married. Have I been happy all these years? Not a minute, only when I was young with you. Well, how have you been all this time? Let's not talk about sad things, Maria suggested. After all, it's a wedding. I'll tell you everything later. And now invite me to dance. Guests couldn't take their eyes off the mature beautiful couple swirling around the dance floor. Thomas looked at his mother and didn't recognize her. He suddenly thought that his mom was a very attractive woman, still young, and had given up her personal life for him, for his sake. For the first time in his life, Thomas felt truly ashamed. Then the guy noticed that his mom was heading towards the exit arm in arm with some wealthy man. Thomas caught up with her on the porch. Mom, where are you going? I'm leaving. This is what you wanted, isn't it? Maria reminded. Mom, I'm sorry, but where are you going with this guy? With this man, I'm ready to go anywhere in the world, Maria confessed sincerely. By the way, meet your father. Miguel and Thomas looked at Maria in astonishment. After a moment of silence, she shook her head decisively and smiled. I think the three of us have a very long and complicated conversation ahead of us.